Hey, Nato here. Today I'm going to do part 10 of What If Deku Had a Leveling System. In the last part, he did a riddle. Well, no. First, he left the Beastman Kingdom, then went for the Human Kingdom, one of the two Twin Kingdoms that I was supposed to mention at the start of the episode, but I only said it near the end, which I kind of just like I started talking about the kingdoms and I was like, wait, I forgot to say that. Um so yeah, Deku went to the first one, which is in the middle of a mountain range. Before going to it, he found a book that had secret writing on it that were only activated by magic. He went in caves, basically passing under the mountain, got scared from some type of monster that were actually like totally, well, literally they weren't actually useful against anything. Unless you had magic in you, then they would just kind of take it out of you. They aren't even able to kill someone with a defense over 200,000, simply because they can't actually harm you at that point. So, after coming out of that, he went in the kingdom, found the second book. Well, a second book that had the same type of riddle on it, couldn't be opened. He found a riddle at the king's palace after finding the fifth book of the 21 that he wants to find to learn a new language. He did the riddle, which, after doing the episode, all the part, in the comment section, Gray told me that actually the riddle came from his little brother. Didn't know that at first, so I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to put it, but why is it that bad? Um, he told me his brother didn't like this what if, so it doesn't really matter if I say that. Like, he literally doesn't even watch it anymore. Like, he watched the two first part and he was off because there was too much information to keep up. So yeah. So basically, after doing all that, he basically left for the second Twin Kingdom that has humans, elves, and beastmen. Most of them are actually a cat type of beastmen. That, just like like I said in the last episode, I'm not going to give them a name, simply because, well, for each species of animals, there is a type of beastman of that type. So like bear beastmans, rabbit beastmans. Um, there is fishmen as well as mermaid and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like there's a lot to keep up with, so I'm just going to class them as beastmans and say the species that goes with it. So basically that's where he's going, and it only takes him 2 days to get there by walk, and he didn't go back through the mountain range, which basically he mapped almost half of it, but it was so big that his magic wasn't actually able to send the light balls at it. So yeah. Um. So this one is going to be a bit longer, I would say, than most. Probably going to be around 2 hours or something like that. Reason is that it's actually going to be two different kingdoms that I'm going to do in this one. Since um this one precisely won't be that long. The travel afterward from that kingdom to the other one that I'm going to put in this part, that's basically going to be the long part. As well as the second kingdom. Because, well, firstly, when he arrived there, the kingdom had a lot of people. He asked for a library, and they basically said that they don't really have one. They do have a place where they have books, but when they actually want one, they just take those that they have at home. So he doesn't ask for those, basically. And they say that the library basically only has around 1,000 books, and that that they're almost all the same as the one in the human kingdom. So kind of useless to go there. So basically he just asked for where the palace is because he still has to ask a question to, well, the royal family, which they basically tell him where it is. Basically he had to show who he was. He's a king, so they kind of allow it. Um while going there, basically this is going to be the longest part about this kingdom precisely. While going there, he meets someone. Actually, he doesn't meet with this person directly. It's more that she tries to. Sorry about that. She tries to steal from him. Basically, a pickpocket. Trying to actually get his money. She tries it. She's able to steal one thing that he doesn't have in his inventory because he still has a bag and stuff in it. And she basically took a purse, well, a money bag basically, that did contain some amount of money, but it's basically like 400 bronze and like around 10 silver only. So 14 silver in total that it would make. But yeah, basically that's a lot of money still. But yeah, you basically always have that like this. Sometime more, sometime less. Because how he works with it is basically he takes it, there's money inside of it, so people see that he's still taking money, and he basically just kind of open his inventory, place the exact amount that he needs in it, grabs that and give it. That's basically what he does. So she took that, which it's a lot of money, but Deku saw her running with it. She is a cat beastman of the Maine Coon type of cats. So basically, well, if I can just... Basically this type of cat. So a lot of fur, big bushy tail, and some long whiskers, as well as a lot of fur in the ear. Basically that's her kind. But a white and orange more looking one. Well, no, wait. She has, well, because, like, Maine Coon come in. Oh, well, there. Basically, that's more what her color pattern. So, yeah. Basically, that's what she is. And he's able to catch up with her pretty easily, since he's fast. Which he basically grabs her and says, "That's my money." Which nobody really seems to care about a small girl stealing money, and then a guy basically that looks the same age grabbing her and asking about it. Which she starts screaming, and an old, an older um, beastman cat basically comes and asks what's going on. She tries to lie. Deku basically tells him that, well, she took his money and he's just trying to get it back. And the guy basically grabbed her and told her that she needs to stop stealing. It's really not good to do that, blah blah blah. And she just basically tells him that it's not her fault that he's trash. Basically, Deku asks, "What the hell's happening with you two?" Which he basically tries to explain that um, both of their parents were actually, well, they're not really related, more that they're in the same orphanage. And he's basically taking care of her while she's not inside of there. She tries to say that she is actually not an orphan, but it kind of shuts her up, basically telling her stop lying. We've heard it 1,000 times. You are from an old royal family, blah blah blah. We know. Stop lying about it. Which she tries to replicate, but it's true and blah blah blah, and he still tries to kind of stop her from saying it. But Deku's basically just listening to that and just like, that's weird. I did hear about a royal family on one of the of well, on his continent where he comes from, basically that they lost their daughter to pirates. They never were able to get her back, and he basically asked her, well, her name, which she says it, and hey, it's the exact same name. Which the guy basically just said, well, the guy just says, "Okay, you've heard her name. What do you want more now? She took your money," and he basically just tell her, "I knew your dad. His name is," and basically tells it. She starts becoming a bit happier. The guy just says, "Stop fueling her imagination," which he basically says, "I'm not fueling anything." The guy asks, "Okay, and how would you know that?" And he basically says, "Because my name is Izuku Midoriya, king of," he says the name of his country, because I still can't remember it. And I don't want to flip through the page of my notebook, because I'm pretty sure that it's like lost in all of the details that I have. Literally, I have like 10 page just for the notes of the first continent, and I'm not checking through them again. So yeah, basically he tells he says that she says that she actually heard of him in an old king. Then she says, wait, but how do you know my dad? He would have been extremely young. And he basically says, yeah, I know. Um, I think he was, what, 10 years old the first time we met? And she basically asks, why didn't you change? You're supposed to be a half-elf, but even half-elf do age a bit. Which he says that, yeah, he doesn't even know himself why he doesn't age. But still. Which he basically asked her um, how whatever happened, because it was weird that she was here of all places, and if Pirate took her, they wouldn't just let her go. Which she basically just says that she kind of jumped off of the ship, was able to kind of escape a bit for a while. Basically, she was in a barrel until a group of fishermen found her, brought her brought her to this continent, and basically she's extremely weak compared to other being. So like he heard of her because, well, how can I say this? I rarely talked about what he did when he trained as a dragon, right? The year before he stopped training as one, something had happened. Since most big group of dragon actually at least know each other, something had happened in the continent where he was born and where he was a king, and during the year before, well, the last year that he was in training as a dragon, he actually was asked to go with one of the other dragon, basically as an emissary, since he already knew the place, so it was going to be a lot easier to explain stuff. It was because the king, well, the father of the girl, basically, was trespassing into dragon territory without the permission of the dragons, firstly. Secondly, there was a war that was kind of arriving, not from the king, but from another group of people. And those dragons kind of wanted to know if they could have the help from, well, the dragons where Deku was training. While being there, he talked with the king, basically because they knew each other. He heard about the princess going missing a few years back, while she was literally just a really young kid, like 3 or 4 years old. So basically, over time, she grew up, she remembers that she was a princess, but only vaguely. She remembers her name perfectly, since the way Beastman works in this world is that compared to humans, who kind of start becoming actually intelligence when they are starting to get to those years and then starts remembering more easily, Beastmen basically act like our types of animal, kind of, for some of them. Like cats, after like 2 weeks, they're kind of already, a bit more intelligent than what they would need to actually remember stuff like that. That's basically what's happening with them, but it takes a little more time still. So yeah, she still remembers that who her father was, her name, his name, where she comes from, but nobody was believing her. He believes her because, well, he heard her story from her dad directly. Now she meets her directly, and her dad was actually looking for her all over when he actually met him. So she's still really young, but she's still able to work more like a kid of like 7, 8 years old, oh, basically, while being. Wait, if the previous year to. I didn't calculate her age while I was doing this. That was seriously a dumb idea. But yeah, basically, all I know is that she's not 10 years old. That's for sure. But she's still able to think like one at least. But yeah, so Deku talking with her dad when he actually met him to talk and that he learned about that. Um, Deku said that if he was able to find her no matter when, he was going to try and help her get back. Even if it takes him like forever literally, if he actually finds her, he would get her back there. He has a spell for that, if you remember, the teleportation spell from the Elven Kingdom. Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, he has that. He can teleport her there. The problem is that she doesn't know if she wants to actually take his help because okay, yeah, he's a king, but he could be lying as well. Like at first she was starting to trust him, but when he said that he could bring her back there right now with a teleportation spell, that kind of set it placed a bar on it that was kind of a bit harder to trust, if you get my drift. Well, that's been a long time since I said that. But yeah, basically it's like she was ready to trust that he did knew him, but she's not ready to trust him that he can bring her back to him right now. Which Deku still does want to do it. For his old friend, mostly. And he decided to ask her, okay, so how would you actually accept that I teleport you to him? And the guy basically talks, why don't you bring the king then? He's going to know. Which he decided to think about it and said, you know what, that's a great idea. Which the guy was like, wait, what? He concentrated on the specific kingdom where the king, well, that king was. And after like 20 minutes, with them just waiting around, since he really seemed to actually be ready to bring him, Deku arrives back with the king, which the king sees her, and, well, she changed a lot. He didn't that much, since beastmen do live a lot longer than humans, blah blah blah. But yeah, so humans are literally one of the species that live the less long. Like, in this world, human can still live for about 95 years unless they actually use magic that would actually make their life longer. Most don't actually have that, so yeah. And most of them die before that, since for them that's kind of the age like limit that most of them have. But most of them die from virus, sickness, um, anything like that actually. So they don't actually live that long. um, so basically, he brings he looks practically the same for her. He recognizes her anyway, and the reason I'm placing this in it is actually because Deku is going to be able to learn about his kids now, since he's never going to be able to see them again. That, I don't know how many times I've said it, and he is sad about it, and he didn't actually go meet them again any time previously. The king, well, he basically asked the king about his kids, well, about Deku as the king about his own kid, like the kids that Deku has. And the king basically just says, if you can teleport, why don't you go see them? Which Deku says that it's because he told them that they might never see him again, and that if he actually goes back, and that he leaves like the same day, it might cause actually, blah, it might actually make it harder for them to see him leave a second time, which the king gets. So the king basically explained to him how his kingdom is going, which it actually became a lot stronger than what most kingdoms were in that. They're actually increasing the amount of strength that they have simply because of the training he gave. Like, every place where he trained people are actually becoming stronger thanks to that training. Even though they're born and gain stats a lot less fast than people born with stronger parents, they're still gaining a lot now because the training that he gives them, well, that he showed them how to do, basically makes them work out a lot more than they ever did and makes them gain level a lot faster. So he basically gave a new, all by himself, he literally augmented the power level of that kingdom, not kingdom, but continent, which Deku is amazed by that. Basically, just thinking, by myself, I increased the stats of the entire um, continent, like enough to actually do a change. It's still not enough to make them go from last place to a higher place, since there's still a lot of people that don't have that much. But knowing that with his training, people are getting a lot stronger, actually makes him think, how is it going to change the place in like 2 or 3 generations? Since if every new generation has stronger stats thanks to the training, and since every time a parent with strong stats has a kid, their kid kind of inherit that power partially. Like, a kid will get to the power of their parents with a lower level that their parents have. It still takes a lot of time, and it's not like, oh, my dad's level 200 and has those stats, I'm going to get them by level 100. It's more like 175, and they're going to have the same stats. But that still means that they're getting a lot stronger, extremely fast. And the king is basically telling him all that, everything that basically augmented thanks to what he did. The king explained that um, when he killed the army, basically, when he destroyed the entire kingdom that was attacking anyone for no reasons, the how do we call it? Be right back. I need to check it. I cannot find it. Basically, in math, when you actually have multiple number and that you have to find the middle section of that, you basically place all of the numbers together like an addition, then dividing the result by the amount of number that was at the start of it, and you basically get that. Basically, destroying that kingdom actually increased it by a bit. Firstly, because they had a lot of strong people, but not all of them were, as well as having one of the biggest army, and the only reason that they were actually winning some war is actually because of the huge amount of number they had. So him destroying them actually lowered the amount of people from who it was taken, well, who had low power, and basically increased the amount of people that were stronger. So just from doing that, he basically increased the well, the entire count that the continent has. It's still the weakest, but it's still getting stronger. Which might not change a lot for now, but in a couple generations, the difference will be a bit more present. But yeah, so he learned that both of his kids are doing well, they have family of their own, and they actually miss him, but they're prepared actually to never see him again now. Like, they've come to terms with it, that it's actually because he's trying to find something for him, and that unless he finds it, no matter the family that he made, he still had the problem of needing to find that, so they knew he had to go. He sent the princess and the king back to their kingdom, where finally he came back, um, and finally went to the castle in the middle of the kingdom, where he finally got to ask about the book. He got it, and basically there's nothing really else about this kingdom, since yeah, there wasn't anything really particular about the kingdom itself. This was more like a specific place that I had decided to do, where he's going to learn about what are the changes that he did to his old I just yeah, continent, since he did go there for a small amount of time, but he didn't have time to actually go there to talk to people about what was happening. It was more of a I go there and I was just able to meet with an old friend. So, for the first time since he left that place, he actually knows what is happening there. So, in the end, Deku came back, got the book, and started going for the next kingdom. This kingdom, the four species that are most present there are um, beastmans of the dog breed, well, dog kind, beastmen of the lizard type, elves, and dwarves. Most of those people, well, most of the being in this kingdom are actually all pretty good together. Like in multiple kingdom, there's like well, like in our world, um it's racism. In this one, they pretty much like everyone and don't care whatever you are, whatever you look like. As long as you're not insulting anyone, they don't really care. Actually, this is one of the rare kingdom, actually, on like 4 or 5 continents. That's the rule for everywhere, but in that one. But this kingdom in particular has a rule that is you can kill if it is for a good reason. Actually, killing isn't actually a crime in that place, so you could kill a kid and they wouldn't care. It's not viewed as good for everyone else outside of them. But if you actually kill someone without a good reason, they won't have any problem actually killing you afterward. Which, when you think that they are pretty strong, that there's almost no human there, so dwarves that are extremely strong, and beastmen that will pretty much try to kill you if you do anything to them. So yeah, pretty much they're not afraid of anyone in the kingdom itself doing it. It's mostly adventurers that think, okay, murder is legal here, I can do whatever I want. They're the one that gets surprised. If you don't get why, I literally explained it to you. But yeah, basically, this is a kingdom where killing is allowed. But most people get that you don't do it unless you actually have a good reason for that. So, actually, the rule is mostly there so that normal people can actually kill someone that's hurting people. It was more placed like it for that reason. So, yeah. This kingdom is almost about 3 or 4 weeks away walking, and you basically have to pass by a swamp for like half of it. And, well, basically, Deku will need a boat, which he has, food, which he has, drinkable water, which he has, and before leaving to go there, he basically gets told that in those places there are, well, that actually the reason that the kingdom has you have to do half of the travel time in a swamp is actually because the kingdom is actually in the middle of a swamp. Like, it's literally that place is called the Swamp Kingdom for a good reason. Like, 35, almost 35% of the population are lizard beastmen, After that, it's basically equal for everything else. 16% of um, dwarf, 16% of elves, 16% of wait. So 35% plus 16 plus 16 plus 16. Okay, so 17% is left, and that's basically every other race that are there. Yeah, I just have the rest is other on my page. Just wanted to make sure. So, yeah, basically there's a lot of lizard demi-human there. Well, beastmen's. So, going there is actually not that bad if you have a boat and that you're able to fight. They tell him that close to the kingdom there is actually a temple, which this will be in the next part. But they tell him that um, there's a temple, as well as actually there being a lot of, well, treasures in there, because adventurers that aren't actually, um, how would I explain it? A lot of people that, well, actually, a lot of people that actually just pass there, most of the time, or lose stuff, or actually just kind of get lost on themselves, by themselves. Because the swamp, if you don't want to get off your boat, since the way it's made is that the swamps are basically full of waters and mud that you can travel by, but it's basically a maze with dense forests on some islands that are basically covering a lot of place, or massive trees and stuff like that. So first you have to pass around that. If you don't want to, you basically have to get off your boat, have it on, lift it up, go over the entire place where it's, um, well, land, basically. You have to be able to do a lot, actually, if you want to get there. But yeah, most people who actually get lost, about almost all of them actually die there. Since, yeah, even if you're able to actually survive it, well, the monsters that are in there, if you lose yourself and that you basically die from, well, not having any food left or not having any water left, you still dead. Which means that you still um, end up dying and losing all of your stuff. So, equipment, treasures that you had with you, and other stuff. So, there's a lot of that all around the swamp. Most people don't actually think about it that much, since there is like 4 specific trails that are kind of like certain ways to go through it. The problem is that for most people they don't actually go through it because you have to pay for it, because it's basically a teleportation system that bring you from one side of the swamp to the kingdom, and you can take it back and go to the other side as well afterward. And most people don't really like using it, simply because the king of that place does have money, but he doesn't control that. Because he would like to reduce it, but he's literally unable to do it. Even he doesn't even pass by it because it costs around 2 silvers, and they think it's way too much, even though it's actually saving their lives if they do it. Since there are maps to actually go and pass through it easily. Problem is, most people that are adventurers go there for the treasures. So you're kind of trying to not go towards the city directly. Problem is that they die afterwards, so Deku learning that tries to think of I could find well he starts thinking that he could find treasures while being there. He can actually swim without problem in the water or the mud. So he wouldn't really mind being there. He also think about the about the ruins that they talked about, which are on the complete opposite side of where he's coming from. So he's actually going to get there in the next part, since those ruins are actually going to take a full part for themselves. That um the only thing I didn't do for this part, well, for that, is that there is a monster that's going to be at the end. Problem is, I don't have any idea what the monster will be. I have a lot of things planned for this series, but this I basically didn't think of it yet. Like, for each temple, ruins, and other things like that, where I decided that there were monsters at the end that they could defeat, I kind of I know that there's a god in some of them that basically, well, that you beat the monster, you get sent to a god, or you can go to meet a god, which the one that you will find actually doesn't send you to one of those. Um, you will see when I do that on the part. But yeah, he doesn't know that yet, and I didn't decide what the monster was going to be. All I know is that I'm trying to find it. Like, I'm looking through mythology and stuff like that, and I did it. I decided to ask someone to help me with that. For once, it's not Gray. Not because I don't want him to be on it, but more because, well, I kind of just decided to ask one person I know. He's another YouTuber that do what ifs. Um, I only asked him once while we were talking about something else, so he didn't answer me. I'm probably going to ask him again later. Um, since the next part of this will be in 3 days. So I basically have 3 days to find the monster for that. But yeah, so Deku will, Deku decide that he's going to go for the Swamp Kingdom. Since he got the the sixth book already. Since he basically didn't have anything in this kingdom to do. The only thing like I said, the only thing I placed in this kingdom was that the daughter of an old friend of Deku was actually there. She was kidnapped by pirates. She was able to escape, and nobody believed her when she was saying that she wasn't a princess previously. So yeah. Basically, every time she steals was basically to buy a special item that are called teleportation stone that allow you to go to a place where you've been, no matter how long it's been, as long as you're able to picture a specific place, you are able to actually teleport there. The problem is that those type of stone actually cost around 20 golds, 20 platinums, so they cost a lot. Reason being is that normally those stones are made to actually teleport you to a specific place, which when you actually buy one for that, it costs around 50 silver instead. So half a gold. Still takes a lot of money, but they're basically made to go to a specific kingdom or a specific town or village or just a specific continent, and you arrive like at a harbor or just kind of anywhere on it, basically. You don't know where. The less specific it is, the less money it costs, basically. Like 50 silver is like, let's say the continent dot to the line, so anywhere on the continent you could arrive, in the middle of a forest, in the middle of a desert, anything. For a specific kingdom, town, village, it varies between 1 to 10 golds. To a specific part of a kingdom, city, or village, well, no, to a specific part of a kingdom, it basically costs a lot more than that. If you want a specific building, then it's a lot worse. And then the stones where you decide precisely where you want to go, which are 20 platinum. Those are so much, well, it takes so much money to actually buy them, because for someone to actually have one, you basically need a a spell that basically would be classed as a god tier spell normally, because of the amount of magic that it needs to be, that needs to be used to create one. Like in some of the strongest continents, actually it doesn't cost anything, for the simple reason that most people that live there could probably just make one if they wanted to, like anytime, so it doesn't cost anything, since they do have the magic in those continents. But in continent where they're not actually that strong, it's kind of different, since not a lot of people can make them for those people. So yeah, Deku would probably be one of the rare people that would be able to make one for in an unspecific place, but it would probably put him out of commission for about a week afterward. And what I mean by that is basically like he used so much magic that he's not able to do anything for a while with magic. Like, stamina and magic are two different things, but if you use too much stamina over time, if you use too much magic over time or use a massive spell in one go, you still start to lose some stamina. So you can still get exhausted by only using magic, simply because, well, using magic does use some stamina, but it's not only using that. While using stamina doesn't actually use magic, so you could be completely exhausted and probably still cast some spells. But yeah, Deku is probably one of the rare people from the weakest continent who could actually do one of those stones. Like, there would be in total around 40 people for that entire continent, the weakest continent, that would be able to make one, and Deku is one of them. So, yeah, that's basically the reason the princess was trying to get money. So yeah, now Deku basically got what he wanted from this kingdom, and he passes for the next one, which is the swamp. Um, Before leaving to go there, he decided, well, no, actually, while going there, he decided to actually not waste his time just walking normally to go to the swamp. And he decided that first, at the swamp, he would not use a boat. He would swim all the way and kill anything that he encounters. Except that if he actually uses his, well, if he doesn't limit his power by the bracelets, well, not limits his power. Well, it does kind of reduce like your stats by like half 1% simply by because since it the bracelets that he has basically just makes his aura completely disappear unless he goes over the amount that the bracelets can hold. Um, so Deku's basically just kind of, since he has to, he basically just lose like 1% of his stats while wearing them. Not that bad. If he removes one, he's actually still has no aura coming out of him, simply because of the power that they have. But now he has more power. Not that much, but still. And Deku basically just decided to think, I'll just remove them and kind of just swim with the amount of power his aura actually shows. Pretty much nothing would dare approach him unless it's strong. Which, remember, he can boost his power thanks to Dragon Force. So, well, Dragon Force, God Force, Demon Force. So, he's not really afraid of anything normally. The only time he's actually afraid of something is when he never learned about them or anything like them, like the monsters in the cave. Since he's classed as an abnormal in this continent, because of this huge amount of strength he has, but some monsters are still a lot stronger than him. Mostly monsters that are basically migrating species and that basically came to this continent from a stronger continent. Those are stronger than the dragons from this place, which a lot of people can become stronger than the dragon if they have the stats for it. Like, if you put enough level into it, well, if you gain enough level, you're basically strong. You can become stronger than anyone, even if you're from the weakest continent, which deku is, but with a massive stats anyway, so kind of different. So basically he just decided that, okay, this time I'm going to just go all the way there as fast as I could, as I can, and swim everywhere while I'm in the swamps. Basically the entire way that I'm going to the kingdom, I'm just going to swim. So when he finally arrives at the swamps, the first thing he remarks is that the waters are actually pretty clear. It's weird. Just from his first continent and from what he explored with the dragons while he was training, from the some places he explored, instead of just training in the dragon caves. But swamps aren't normally clear for the water. So he was a bit impressed by how weird it was, as well as thinking that something's not right. Which is actually false, it's just because this part of the swamp is called the crystal swamp. Basically, there's a special type of crystal at the bottom that are basically, well, living crystals. Think of them as corals. Corals are a living organism that basically are, well, that are basically made of shells, kind of. It's not really a plant. This is basically the same thing. It's alive and basically feeds on everything that is floating around. Every type of plankton, algae, and stuff like that. And as well, basically makes a small current that absorbs everything to the bottom. So there's no sand or stuff like that basically floating in the water most of the time. Deku's not able to see them, but the reason is that the way they're made and the color they have. Well, first, the color they have is basically the same as the bottom of the swamps, so he's not able to see them since they basically just blend in. And the way they are made is basically like a crystal completely that is sharp, can easily cut, and finally also has a small, how could I say, use to it. You're going, it's going to come in a bit later basically, but yeah. Um, Deku basically enters the water since, yeah, he's going to swim all the way. First thing he does is activate his water dragon force to breathe underwater. And basically, as well, with special scales that basically block his eyes to basically allow him to, well, just like some species has a membrane over their eyes that is thicker, making them need to blink less or making them able to see underwater even if it's muddy or stuff like that. Basically, he just kind of gets that by default. Since water dragons live underwater, so they kind of need it. He kind of just gets it. It doesn't change his appearance for his eyes, but it's still there. So basically he's still able to see correctly underwater. So Deku kind of just starts swimming, and for a while he's not basically really touching the bottom, he's basically just staying at the surface until he thinks he sees something kind of flashing at the underwater. And when trying to go see what it is, for the first time he actually cuts himself, well, not really cuts himself, but um, touch one of the crystals, which he does. He doesn't really think of it as something that impressive at first, because he just thinks that, oh, it's probably like a rock or something that I didn't see. But after going and basically pushing the sand away to reveal what he was seeing, which was just basically a piece of broken sword, so useless, he started realizing that there was a lot of those crystals. Well, firstly, he realized that it's not a stone, it's a crystal. Then, seeing that they were basically everywhere in the area, he decided to grab a couple, hundreds, basically. So he took a lot of them, basically breaking part of it, um, just kind of have a lot of it since it is kind of strong. So he thought maybe I can find a use for it. Um, so he's going to take some. So he he grabs a lot and basically starts continue. And after a while, he comes out of the area where those crystals are, which basically means that sand and mud is basically back in the water, since there's nothing to actually push it down. So, um, yeah, so he starts seeing about that. He touched the ground and feels that there's no more crystals, and basically starts thinking that it's probably because of those, or something like that, which he's going to learn later. So he continues for a while, basically underwater, feeling everything he can to basically try to find stuff. Okay, yeah, sorry, I had to pause for a second. Like I was saying, he was trying to find stuff underwater. After a bit, he did start to basically, well, he arrived during the night, slept before entering the water, so it's kind of daytime right now. But arriving at a certain part, he started seeing that the sky was getting darker, but he knew the time wasn't. Sorry. That the time wasn't actually placed to actually make night right now. Like, there should still be time before that. Like, he's only been traveling for like 4 hours only. So, he woke up at like around 9. So, it's only around 1 p.m. So, it shouldn't be dark right now. And he knows that. He's actually thinking, why is it so weird here? So he still continues since, well, he's going to a city. He still has his bracelets on, and after a while, he starts feeling watched. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows something is watching him. Something big. He is not afraid of it, though. Compared to the beasts that he saw in the cave, that he was actually able to see but not able to sense at all, this he's able to sense it. And he doesn't know where it is, but he knows that its presence is there. So if anything happens, he's probably just going to be able to actually, well, beat it. And after after a small amount of time, he started feeling more and more eyes on him. He doesn't know where they come from or why they're actually after, well, looking at him. So he decided that he was just going to continue and hope for the best, which actually doesn't really bother him that much. Since, okay, yeah, it's it can be extremely dangerous, but I'm able to sense them at least. If something is wrong, he's going to be able to fight back, knowing that he's at least able to, well, if they stop hiding, he's probably going to be able to know where they are precisely. So, Deku basically just continues going through the maze, having some problems at some parts, basically meeting dead ends. And since he basically doesn't have a map with him, basically if he wants to go out of it, he can just fly up and finds where whatever he wants is. But for some reason, he's not able to actually resolve to doing that, and he just wants to keep swimming. Which even he finds weird. Because it's as if his senses are telling him that don't do it, basically. Don't go up. Which he really doesn't know why he's sensing that. So he just kind of keeps going like that. And the moment where the problem actually starts, well, actually, the problem kind of just starts when at some point he starts hearing a lot of rustling behind him. He knew that there was stuff following him, but this was weird because he passed right next to where the sun is coming from, and there wasn't any leaves there. Actually, all there was just a small island made fully of dirt, and the only thing on it was, well, a box that was broken in two with nothing inside of it. If that's basically um, all that there is, why would there be the sound of leaves? Or something else like that? He doesn't know why, but all he knows is that he needs to keep going, which After a bit, he finally realized that, wait, I'm not thinking like I do normally. If something is behind me, and that I'm not afraid of it, why do I act like if I was? Something is not right. Which, for the first time since he entered, he basically realized that the way he acts was different. Normally, he is always trying to think about what's happening and is extremely curious, except when he knows he's in danger or that he is actually fully afraid of something because he thinks he could be. Right now, he doesn't even feel like it is. He doesn't even have any fear in him, but his body's telling him that something is wrong, both in how he acts and how his body reacts with stuff. So, first thing he decides to do is okay, think rationally. Normally, if something's observing me, I look at it. I know it's there and I look at it. When that doesn't happen, because I feel like the thing could actually hurt me, I start moving a lot faster. But right now, I feel as if it's dangerous, but perfectly fine. I feel stressed, but not. And I feel angry, but pleased. As if every emotion was there at once, but all of them trying to kind of just give a small part of what they can, well, of what you're supposed to feel when you feel them. Which he knows is bad, since if his emotions are all acting up at the same time, what's happening? And I'm going to explain to you what is happening. The thing following him is a special type of beast that are called emotional beasts. The species in particular that he is being chased by is one that normally, and I really do mean normally, only try to get what you are observing. Well, when it looks at something bigger than him, it observes it, and doesn't attack. Like the one that's actually following him, but he knows that it's bigger, so he's just thinking how many emotion can he force me to feel, since normally they only have like one or two. But Deku's feeling multiple elements at once, and not just two or three, which three is basically a bit hard to get for those monsters, but Deku's all feeling them at once, which he thinks doesn't add up. The thing is that it's not that it doesn't add up because one isn't enough. It's because those monsters are actually all in group right now. What he is feeling is multiple of them. All of the emotion that they give him at the same time, which makes him kind of a bit worse, but at the same time kind of a bit better. So, kind of hard to explain anything else. Deku, after thinking for a bit, decided that, you know what? I'm going to end it. That's not be talking, that's deku. He basically starts lifting himself up. He looks back and doesn't see anything, but know they're there, and launch a um, lightning dragon roar. And he finally sees what was following him. A group of around 40 individual that are small of the species I've been talking about, and then a huge being of that species. So Deku basically just think, oh well, now I know what they are, and he knows what they are. He read about them. Um, they're they're immune to fire, lightning, ice, completely resistant to temperatures, and yeah, basically. So Izuku, firstly, um, fire, lightning. I mean, would not well, literally didn't do anything. Just showed them where they were, and then Deku started actually thinking, okay, those monsters control specific elements, and depending on the element that they have, um, they're what is it called? Well, basically the text and stuff like um, character selection. Okay, yeah, sorry, I was for some reason I wasn't able to think at all. So yeah, basically, wait, what was I talking about? Monster, blah blah blah, type. Wait, what? Okay, yeah, no, I skipped like 4 lines of dialogue in my notes. I was like, I'm talking about monsters and now I'm talking about type and character selection for video games. I was like, there's a problem. um, okay, so basically the monsters come in different um, size, blah blah blah. They give not elements, but they give different emotions. They're immune to certain elements, which Deku basically attack them with the lightning element that they have. And they come in multiple different colors and they have different patterns on them. This is where the character selection system actually comes in the in what I was talking about. You can basically, when they are born, they all have the same white and brown coat on them, but over the time that they age, they're basically the one that choose what color they have on them. Well, they don't really choose about it, but it depends on what they eat, like what type of plants or meat that they eat. It will change the colors of their outfit, scales, whatever, as well as over time they're able to basically turn completely invisible thanks to a specific capacity that they have themselves. The big one is more powerful than the small ones, but yeah, no problem for Deku. He knows what they are, he knows he can kill them, which he basically does right after. So, yeah, he decided to just kind of continues on his way. Um, and now he doesn't feel watched anymore. Um, After a while of walking, Deku finds a chest in the bottom of the swamp. Basically, at the bottom of it, he was seeing a small box under all of the clouds of dust and mud. He went and grabbed it. He opened it, and all there was inside was a pendant. He decided to just keep it all, close the box, and place it in his storage. And literally, no, it's not something that's going to be relevant. It's just kind of he's finding stuff that he would be able to sell. He found that. Later, he found a boat broken in half, a small boat with corpses inside. That all he does is basically bury. Um, and it basically continues like that with him finding different things. Most of the things he finds are pretty much like just jewelry or weapons or armor or bones. Since he would not be able to find any books in this place, basically, since. Oh, yeah, put a book in the swamp. It's not going to last very long. And so, after a long, long time of traveling, basically a full week, where he was sleeping in ball of rock that he was making. Well, more ball of plants in this place, so that creatures wouldn't attack him while he's sleeping. And so after after all of that happening, um, he arrived to the Swamp Kingdom. First thing he realized when he arrives there is that there's actually massive walls all around the kingdom that all over them is coated with a special oil that basically makes a huge, well, you just need to use a lightning spell on one part of it and basically the entire thing starts doing electricity. The oil doesn't burn and is only washable off by water or other things like that, so unless it rains, basically anything that touches it, except stuff that are immune to electricity, will basically start frying because of it. And the oil also makes it impossible for any creatures to basically climb up the wall. As well as the wall being made of around 2 meter thick um, rock, basically. So pretty hard to destroy. Oh, it can be done, but it's not going to happen for now. When arriving there, first thing he sees inside of it, instead of outside, is the way that the city seemed to be made to hold people in instead of holding something out. When he asks why it looks like that, he basically tells because the kids are too dumb and they basically actually try to get outside when monsters are basically lurking all around. So the walls are made to make sure that monsters don't enter, but they're also to make sure that old people and kids don't go outside. The reason I say old people is because of dementia and stuff like that. So after a while, basically, he finds the library, the place where the queen is, which is a lizard beastman of a type that has gills. Basically, some species are kind of different from our world, since she's not actually a lizard, more of an amphibian, like a Naxolotl or something like that, basically. But it still counts as a lizard for them, the lizard type of beastman. So yeah. Firstly, the library is kind of big. Around 20,000 books are in there. Most of them are in the language of the lizard beastmans, since they do have their own language as well as the language that is commonly talked. Deku knows it, and it takes him around something like a week to read through all of them, simply because it's 2,000 books that aren't actually just small books. There's actually like 20 books out of all of those that are about 3,000 pages long. They're little bricks of book. And those books are actually the story of this kingdom, as well as experiments on some of the monsters. Those monsters weren't released in the wild, and you can't actually find the species that were created or modified by accident. What you do have is some of them having... Sorry, I think I was starting to speak really low or something. But yeah, so basically it's the story of the kingdom, experiments made on monsters, and yeah, basically those are really long to read, even for him. It took him a week, but mostly because for everything he was reading in the books on the history of that kingdom, every time he saw something that looked weird and that or something that should not be there, he was looking back at it and he was actually able to find stuff that basically explained why it was like that. So he didn't actually have a problem with it in the end. So it basically just took him a week because of all the books that he had to read. Basically, some of those books were books that he had already read, just in the lizard beastman language, which he still reads because it's not this. It's still the same thing written inside of it, but it does still makes him read something new, kind of. So he still reads them. After doing that, he starts going around to find the queen. Since he actually went by the castle, she wasn't there, and they said that she most of the time go through the city. So he's basically looking for her. He finds her after a small amount of time. Sorry about that. But yeah, so he basically finds where she is, um, meets with her, and basically tells her about what he's doing. Basically looking for the 21 books, um, which she does say that she has, and he asks her if they have to go back to the castle for it, which she says no, not really. Um, that when this kingdom got it, they basically decided that every queen or king of the kingdom had to learn storage magic to always have it on them. Since when someone dies with the with something in their storage magic, whatever is in it basically gets thrown out of it. No matter what happens, you can basically be sure that it's still going to be in the world if someone dies. So he asks her if he can have it right now. She answers yes, gives it to him, and then she starts asking him if he saw anything weird in the swamp while coming here. He asks what she means, and she explained that there's two type of monsters that are normally one against the other, which keeps the population in check. But since the last 2 months, basically they started multiplying a lot more, and they weren't attacking each other that much. As well as around a week ago, a big amount of light basically just passing around in the in the swamp, and later when they sent someone there, basically the next day, it looked as if all of the monsters were crushed to death, which Deku basically did by controlling the plants and basically just kind of wrapping it around them and just squeezing all the way tight, so completely explode them. He basically explained that the monsters that were dead was basically from him, which she does say thank you to him. After a bit of chit chats, basically her explaining what's happening and why it's weird, and Deku basically just thinking that something's wrong with the way she explains it. It's as if the monster are trying to replicate what humans do. Well, not humans, but humanoids are doing by creating an alliance to basically beat the stronger force. And they're kind of learning from that. But they're basically thinking, yeah, but that wouldn't happen. They're not intelligent enough to do that. Which they aren't. The reason this is happening is because of something in the temple. And like I said, this is going to come in the next part in 3 days. So I'm going to end it here, with Deku basically being told the exact location of the ruins by the queen. Um, with him deciding that he was going to go there, and yeah. So, hope you liked it. I think some things in this episode, this part, are a bit weak. Well, not weak, but badly made. Um, some of the parts in this, since I didn't write everything like while I was fully awake, some of them do have some small problems. Um, Basically stuff like I was super, well, actually, right now I also am really sleepy. But yeah, so when I was writing stuff and that I was already sleepy, it kind of make it so that it's hard to do stuff. Like reason for why some things might be weird, and the reason why when I was talking about the swamp monster, at some point I just kind of started talking about character selection system, because it literally looked like I was writing in that line when no, it wasn't at all. So yeah, hope you liked this one. Leave a like if you did. And yeah, in 3 days I'm going to do the next part for this one. And tomorrow I'm going to do my next part on my Omega Stone Deku. So yeah, Natsu out.